This is a place for planting, for digging, for harvesting, for relaxing. It's a place to get your hands dirty, but most of all, it's about having fun. And that's what you'll always have when you're in the garden with Doug Oster. You want a green thumb too, don't you? We're on the road again, and there is no better place to be than in these greenhouses at Quality Gardens in Valencia. We're going to learn everything there is to know about starting seeds, and there are some cool peppers in here, and that's where we're going to start. Follow me. Do you ever take it for granted? All the oxygen, all these plants, all the sunshine.
Every day is a great day. When you're in a greenhouse around nature, you have the smells, particularly a sunny day when the soil is moist and you get that, there's no better place to earn a living than in a greenhouse.
All right, show me how you start pepper seeds.
All right, we'll do it down here.
So we're doing peppers now. The number one seed to start is tomatoes. When do we do that?
Well, tomatoes take a couple weeks less than peppers. So we always start the peppers a few weeks before the tomatoes. You could, if you're a homeowner and just wanting to get a few started, you could start them all at the same time. Our problem is that if we do the peppers and the tomatoes at the same time, the tomatoes end up getting a little stretchy on us. So we try and put those off for a little bit.
All right, so we've got two different ways to start our seeds here. What's the difference between this? This is the way I would do it in these bigger 2x2s.
Yeah,
but why the smaller one?
Well, if you're a homeowner, this would be the way to do it. You put a few seeds in, and then you could 3 maybe seeds in a cell tray, and then as they start to grow, if one looks a little bit weaker, you could cut it out, and that way you wouldn't have to transplant it. You could just take it straight from this out to your garden. In our case, we have to grow so many that to do this would take up too much of our floor space. So we do them in what are called cells. And when they get to be a certain size, we transplant them into the cell packs.
Okay. And what are we starting with to plant in? What is this stuff?
This is a product that is produced commercially for us and others. It's a product made by Fafford Company, and this happens to be called Fafford No. 4, which is a multi-purpose seed mix, fine grind. It has perlite. It has a lot of the good things, and it has a wee little bit of starter fertilizer in it. You don't want, when you're starting seeds, you don't want to use a mix that has a lot of charge to it, because those very fine root hairs can actually burn when they touch too much fertilizer. So, at least in our case, we like to use a hungrier mix to get the seeds started so that we can monitor and then we can add the fertilizer.
And when we're looking for this, we just can go to the nursery and say, I want a seed starting mix.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So I was going to sow a few into this larger tray to show. And all I ever do is we take the seeds, and you can do this with any pack, and you just make a crease, and then you slowly tap. So Doug, what we do is we cover them lightly with vermiculite.
Why vermiculite and not more of the mix?
Because it's easy to cover it evenly with the vermiculite. It's a nice product. It doesn't restrict the seeds from going through. It doesn't, when we mist and when we water, the water goes right through it. And it's sterile.
So what's the next step then?
Well, the next step for us is to water it lightly, and then we put it into our germination chamber.
So for us that don't have a germination chamber, we need to keep this humidity and keep this moisture up. What would you do for a regular gardener?
There are commercially available domes, which are hard plastic, clear, that sort of snap over top of the tray, and they will hold the moisture in, keep the humidity high, and they'll make sure that it's the right environment. If you don't feel like doing that, or if you have a lot of trays that you're starting at once, you could take some saran wrap and put over top. You could take a cleaner bag and put over top of it. The idea is to get something that holds the humidity in there. Now, if you do that, any of those things, you don't want to set this in the full sun, because the sun beating through that plastic will just heat the soil up too much. You'd like the soil temperature to be in the 70s. You don't want it to be in the 30s. You don't want it to be in the 90s. Different seeds germinate at different temperatures, but in general, the things that most people are looking to germinate this time of the year germinate best in the 60 to 75 degree.
Once they sprout, we get our plastic off and get some kind of light on them, right?
Right, yeah, very important that as soon as you start to see them coming through the ground, you monitor that very closely. And when you think about half of them have germinated, that's when you would take the plastic off. That's when you would start moving it into a sunnier spot so that the plant, you don't want them to stretch, because what will happen is they'll stretch and they'll fall over, and that becomes unwieldy.
Yeah. All right, let's see where you would germinate yours.
Okay.
All right, where are we going to take this thing?
Well, first thing we want to do is make sure that we tag things so that as they start to grow, you'll not be wondering, what was that I planted? And we put the tags in.
And we want everybody to get the sweet pepper.
Yeah, well, that's one of those nightmare things that as a grower, sometimes if you don't get things done right, you could have someone go home with the sweet pepper. Oh wait, that was a hot pepper, and they find out in July.
Surprise!
And a lot of times they'll come back to see me.
When do I come back and eat my peppers?
Probably in July. I would say if you could, if you get them planted, if we have a good growing season, sowing them now, you should expect to have peppers in July.
I like that. Thanks, Tom.
Just that way.
It's great.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Let's go look around a little bit.
All right. It's a beautiful day to look around.
Well, how about this? Does this look like spring or what? For more information about everything we talked about today, including a complete story on seed starting, check me out online. That's where you can find lots of videos and columns and other stories, everything gardening. And we are getting closer and closer. I cannot wait to be out in the garden again. It's going to take wild horses to get me out of here today. In fact, I'm going up on the hill and I'm going to poke around a couple other greenhouses. We'll see you next week.